show for entrepreneurs by entrepreneurs. Sit back, listen in, and prepare to grow together.
Let's get on with the show.
All right, you guys, welcome to a brand new episode of the Growth, Grit, Grind podcast. If this is your first time here, we try to take time and talk to other business owners and entrepreneurs about their journey from startup to scaling their business, the challenges they've faced, and kind of where they got or how they got to where they are now, and then maybe what they're looking at in the future. And we do all this in an effort to be lifelong learners. I myself learn from every guest that we have on here. I hope the guests can learn a little bit from me, and then collectively we all learn something from each other. And I wish that I'd had some folks like this that I could have looked up to when we were getting started, and taken from some of their mistakes and listened and learned and went and applied that. But I want to introduce our guest today. As you guys know, we have these periods where we have guests, may go a week or two, we don't have a guest, and we just try to do something that applies. We try to talk about training or things I picked up, a book I'm reading, things like that. But today we have a guest, and I'm excited to introduce her. This is Allyson Roberts, and I am so excited that we made this happen. Correct me if I'm wrong. We were scheduled another time, and then we rescheduled, and I understand that's probably the life of the business owners, right? That's just the way,
Yes.
the way it works. Trust me, we've had multiple of those, and I get the messages, I see the calendar reschedules, but lo and behold, we have Allyson Roberts here with us today. So I wanted to say thank you so much for taking some time out of your day to sit with us.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I love, sharing my experience and my wisdom and my knowledge. So, and I also am a constant learner. So I'm probably going to learn something from you during this podcast, which is amazing. So thanks so much for having me.
Absolutely. No, I can't thank all the business owner guests and entrepreneurs that we have on here. We know life gets hectic. We know, even us doing this podcast, it was something we set and talked about for 6 months, probably a year. And we're like, do we really have time to do this? Can we make time out of the week and take time to do it? We know that it's not an ROI thing for us. We know it's a growth thing for us. And we do get to meet some awesome business owners. It's not our kind of goal to pull clients from this or anything, but for us to be able to learn from it, and ideally people watching it that maybe they took a nugget or two from the show, and then, they blow up one day and they're like, hey, I do need a marketing and advertising guy. And they do reach back out to us, but this is obviously not the goal. Like, we just want to be able to learn from each other. But Allyson, tell us a little bit about what it is that you do, so that way the audience can kind of have some context there.
Yeah. So my business is a triangle. I love to just give people visuals. So it has 3 components. The first is that we teach people how to change their behavior, because your behavior is the proof of you, right? So if you want to build muscle, you have to go to the gym. If you want to stop doing anything, then you actually have to stop doing it. So we teach people, the behavior that is getting in their way and tools to change that behavior. The other leg of our business is that we help people write their 100-page teaching memoir, from the creation of it to the layout to the book design, the cover, everything. And then we take them through a launch. We do our very best to get it to bestseller. And then we also teach people how to craft and deliver their keynote speeches, which includes the TEDx stage. So that is what we do. We teach people how to use their voice and why they should be using their voice.
And I think you may be an incredible guest for our audience, because and I wouldn't say all of us, but you meet a lot of type A personalities as business owners and entrepreneurs. You meet other personality types for sure, but I know that, like, from my side where I'm at, it's something that as our business has grown and scaled and we've learned things along the way, naturally I've gravitated towards, I want to speak, I want to talk. And it's not for the purpose of like seeing myself on camera or being up on a stage and saying, look
Right.
at me. It's that there is something inside me that I'm super passionate about that I want to let out, and I want other people to hear about it too. And I want ideally us to, again, learn together. Every time I've ever done any type of speaking engagement, I learn from the experience. I learn from the people in the room that I talk to, and I hear their stories and I talk to them afterwards. So I think you're probably barking up the wrong tree, if we can use that expression, or barking up the right tree, is that this audience that is listening, I think that, you may get some messages out of it too, because I think that I may be one of them. But that's incredible, and that's a super unique business, and I'm glad that we're able to have you here. I guess let's rewind as we normally do, and let's talk about the moment that what happened, I guess, in your life or in your business or your career that shifted you into what you're doing right now? Was there a moment? I mean, I'm assuming you haven't been doing this since grade school. So, what pivot happened? What change happened, or what sparked in you to get you on the journey that you're on now?
Yeah, I love this question because it's a deep answer. It's complex and yet it's so simple, right? So I grew up in a very abusive childhood home, and that journey of getting out of that abuse and discovering who Allyson is along the way was definitely not a linear thing. It takes you through loops and curves and all of these things. But the story that everybody just, really wants to hear about in my life is when I was homeless and pregnant and living in my car. Everybody is like, holy, like, I can't believe that you went through that. That's incredible. And that I survived it, and that, I came out of it. And then the other piece of that is that I placed my son for adoption. And then 24 years later, we miraculously faxed our paperwork in at the exact same time, like 3 minutes apart, to find one another. It was a closed adoption. We didn't know anything about each other. And so how did that lead me here? My career 20 years ago started out with me sharing my adoption story to prospective adoptive parents, just telling them, this is the birth mother's journey. Like, it's not an easy one, and you need to like develop some respect for where your child is coming from. And it was through that, these people in the audience that worked for like IBM and Home Depot and NCR Data Copy, and like all these companies were coming to me saying, we really would like for you to come and just motivate our employees. We know that this is about adoption, but it's just so much more than about adoption. So then that just kind of opened the door for me to start speaking on other platforms, just sharing my story. And why is our story so important? It's because that's, like if you look at the Bible and the Torah, and, you go to any religion or any, great motivational people, the stories are the things that people can relate to. The stories are what changes us, right? Like, I can teach you 1 + 1 is 2, and that's great. Like, the knowledge is needed, and it's amazing. But once we have a baseline of knowledge, what starts to happen from that baseline is that when we want to grow a business, when we want to put ourselves out into the world, if we're just using the knowledge, anybody can teach knowledge. But it's when we start sharing our soul with other people, and our heart with other people, and our journey with other people, that's when we find like our people, our clients, our friends, our chosen family. Like, that is where the real meat of our business and our life comes from.
No, I completely agree, and everything you said. First of all, that's an incredible story, and I want to hear the rest of it. But no, that's an incredible story. I mean, to know that not only that you went through that as a child, and we don't have to go down the rabbit trail, maybe on another episode. But I experienced a very similar, and never would want to compare stories with other people. But sometimes comparison, we find out that we have that connection there, right? And so to hear you say that, I'm sitting here back just like, wow, this is a great guest, because it's taken me down, that memory lane too. And it was, experienced that in my life too, broken family, and everything you could possibly imagine. Probably the worst that some people couldn't imagine was my childhood and my upbringing. And then to go to where we are now, like it encourages me, and then I hope that it can encourage others as well. But then walking through everything you said, taking, talking about the Bible, is that, and I've been a lifelong application there, is that there are those moments to where there would be these like something would be said, Like, and it's very generalized and it's very, rule based or whatever it was. But then there would be this, most people call parables, but then there'd be this parable or like a story that would put it into context for people to understand. And I use it a lot. I try to give examples. I do it with my children. Is like I tell them one thing and I say this or that, and this is why, but let me explain it to you this way. And then explain it to them in a way that, and I don't want to say on their level necessarily, I want to say on everyone's level for them to understand it and be able to take it and go, oh, okay, that's why it makes sense. And now I can apply it, what they're trying to teach me. And I completely agree with you. And that's something that and I think more business owners need to latch onto, is that it's crazy to think, and I feel like me and you both know this, but it's crazy to think that you can take something that is true and heartfelt and that you're passionate about and see what happens. And that's the magic to me, is like we had that from the very beginning. We're in a very different field. We're in marketing and advertising. But when we went about it, it was from a very genuine place. If we saw a need immediately in our local community, is that we had a lot of mom and pop businesses that we knew if you went to any of the large advertising agencies around in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, they would never be able to afford it. Not even, the smallest option or offering, they would never be able to afford it. And we knew from the beginning that meant, well, we were going to be underpriced, for the market, but we knew that we could go make a difference. And what that led to is us being passionate about it. It relayed, and everyone that we ever talked to in the beginning was like, I just believe you. Like you're passionate about this. You truly care about me and my small business. And, you flip it to what you're doing. People see that you genuinely care about the people that are in that room, that in your mind, if I impact one person, 100 people, 1,000 people, it's the ripple effect that happens after that. What happens beyond today? And so you said so much there that is so good. And I want everyone to catch that. You need to rewind and listen to it and really pull out the parables out of that and put it into context into what you're doing in your business. There was some gold there. So I want to allow you to continue. So I guess fast forwarding a bit, is that, doors started opening, you started jumping at those opportunities to go and speak. And that was one kind of leg or triangle of kind of what you do now. But let's talk about kind of moving forward. When did you start making the shift, or why did you make the shift to bring the other sides of the triangle in? And, you know what? And before we get there, I want to back up just a second. What challenges did you face, like in the beginning? I imagine, did all the doors just flood open at once, or was it like you were speaking to, tiny rooms and wanted to get to bigger rooms, or, what, I guess give some folks some context there of like, did it just magically happen overnight, or was there kind of some blood, sweat, and tear moments?
There's no magic overnight.
You're telling, really?
Yeah, there's no magic overnight. And that's the thing, is that, if you do have like newer entrepreneurs listening to this, there is no magic overnight. I've spoken to no one in the room. Literally, yeah. No one showed up, but I spoke anyway because I had the videographer there, and so I just took the opportunity to at least have a speaker reel,
Absolutely.
Yeah. When other people have seen me speak and they've invited me to their events, the rooms have been pretty full.
Sure.
When I have, put on my own event and tried to fill up the seats with like a new audience, with people who didn't know me, who didn't know anything, that is, getting butts in seats is the hardest part of an event. It really is,
Completely agree.
Yeah. So I've spoken to 5,000 people. I've spoken to 0. And here's what
is that a gut check in the beginning, just for those listening, like those that kind of try to go after that? Is that a gut check, or do you just have to immediately get over it when you go into an event, whether it's you promoting your own or someone else brought you in, and in those moments that, we're going to have 500 people here, 5,000 people here, or 250 people, and there's, 50 or 10 or none. Is that a moment that you have to kind of, I imagine in the beginning, you kind of have to check yourself a little bit, because you probably have that immediate kind of discouragement and go, man, nobody wants to hear me. Nobody. What kind of happens in those moments?
Oh yeah. The time that I showed up and there was no one, except for the person that had invited me to speak, and she was like super apologetic and all the things. I wasn't getting paid either. So it,
Even better.
I had expected to sell at that event. And there was no one to sell to. So I went into the bathroom, you go through all the emotions, right? And I was angry. I was, devastated. I was embarrassed. I was humiliated. Like you go through all of that. But as I was sitting there, I was sitting on the floor in the bathroom, and I was just trying to pull myself together, and, I'm very, prone to just trying to quiet myself and just listen for guidance, because without that, I wouldn't be sitting here today.
Right.
So I just closed my eyes and I'm like, God, I don't understand. Like, what am I even doing here? Because I had flown there too. So it wasn't just like this was, around the corner from where I live or anything. And I was like, I don't understand. And I just heard this voice inside of me that was like, you will understand. And I'm like, okay. So I got up, redid my makeup, went out, and I was like, well, we have videographers here. Can I just get on stage and just, at least have a speaker reel from you? And she was like, yes, absolutely. And oh my gosh, and the beautiful thing about that is that that day, speaking to no one in the audience, I realized what it showed me. And this is exactly what all of this means, right? So what it showed me was that I really don't speak for myself.
Right.
I really do speak to, impact other people. And when I got the speaker reel back, I could tell that I was upset, but I could also see that, if my speaker reel just reached one person, that it was going to be okay for me.
Sure.
And that was a real enlightening moment for me, because I was like, I mean, and the other thing too was that the person who had invited me had never heard me speak my entire presentation before. And she was sitting there. And she continues to this day. I mean, this is like 15 years ago. She continues to this day to still hire me for events and still,
It's awesome.
Bring me into circles that I normally wouldn't be brought into. So what I would say to someone that's listening to this is just like, you're going to have those moments, and you show up anyway.
That's all that's been resounding in my head was the almost exactly what you said was do it anyway.
Yeah.
Do it anyway. I mean, and it goes from this podcast to content we put out, this, and any business owner, entrepreneur that's listening to this, like that's the key right there. Like, do it anyways. You're going to do it in the beginning for no one. You're going to do it in the beginning for a very small audience. And I don't care if that's you putting out, YouTube videos or content on going live on your business Facebook page, like all of these things that most of you get discouraged by and then quit. Is you don't know when the breakthrough was. Like you don't even know now. Like you don't know if it was one video away. And I've used examples with clients and trainings that we've done in the past. Like there are clients and testimonials that we've seen that are not even our clients, that they kept doing it and they were 100 views, or 0 or 12. And then all of a sudden they had this reel that went, 750,000 views, and they got a bunch of e-commerce orders. They got people starting to follow their page. Like you don't know when that breakthrough is. And to tell you the truth, going a step further, is that lady that was in that room, that event organizer for you, would you have reacted differently if you'd have just packed your stuff up and been like, you know what, this is a waste of my time. I don't know why you brought me here. You're a terrible promoter. You're terrible. Like if you'd done that, like the relationship that now has gone 15 plus years, it would have never been there. But because you responded in that moment, and we've talked about on the podcast before, and we've used different times, but realistically 30 minutes or less. And really, I like to see that be 5 or 10 minutes, is like you get your minutes of I'm mad, I'm upset, I'm not happy, I'm discouraged. And then you have to look yourself in the mirror, you have to pick yourself up, and you got to go do it anyways. And that's really what it is. And I don't care if that's hiring someone, firing someone, starting a business, closing a business, like whatever it is, have your moment. And then you have to move on. Otherwise, that thing or that moment becomes what defines you for potentially forever, until you decide to eventually 20 years later go, that was the moment that has messed up everything since then. And that's why that's who I identify as now, is that mistake or that problem or where I quit. And if people won't, if they take their few minutes, have your moment, we're all humans, we're allowed to have those emotions, but you have to be able to pick yourself up and do it anyways. So that was, okay, Allyson, you are dropping some great stuff here. And it's clear that this is what you do, which is awesome. So,
and I do want to say,
yes, please do.
She knew that I was not ugly to her at all.
Right.
But I mean, but she knew that I was upset, you know?
Absolutely.
And that's the other thing I want to say about this is that copy no one. Copy no one. And what
Yeah.
do I mean by that? Be your true authentic self, right? And that includes crying if you feel like crying and saying, I need a minute to go into the bathroom and pull myself together. I'm really super disappointed, which is exactly what I said to her. And she was like, I don't blame you.
Yeah.
I get it. I understand. Um, because, a lot of things that I see on stages, I go to a lot of TEDx events. I put on TEDx events. Is people trying to be Brene Brown or Oprah Winfrey or
Yep.
or Tony Robbins or and I'm like, no, we need you. Like we need you. We need
Yeah.
your story. We need the way you deliver. We need you. And I just see a lot of copy and paste on social as well. And it's just so important to just really find your authentic voice.
Yeah. And the world needs you, right? Like that's exactly what you're
Yes.
saying. It's like there's so many people out there that either have been silenced by their past or their present of people that told them that they weren't good enough or they could never do it or they've gone through struggles. People want to hear it all. Like you don't
Yes.
understand that someone that could be listening to your YouTube video, your TED talk or whatever it may be, that is going to connect, and how many people would connect with that story of the failures and the setbacks and the naysayers. Like you have no idea. I mean, and me and you, we might be one of those. Like, go back into we didn't walk all the way through everything you went through. We didn't walk everything, but I can connect enough with you to hear that I want to hear that story. It encourages me to this day. Like, I feel like I keep myself fairly encouraged and I'm excited, but everybody has those days, to where to hear someone else's story. And it's not even a comparison. It's not like, well, their life is way worse than mine, so if they picked it up, it's not even about that. It's all
Mhm.
encouragement from that point. So, the world
Yes.
needs you. The people that are out there, the YouTubers, the TikTokers, like all of them, and you can do it. And that's the world we live in now. Is everyone has a platform? It's just how are you going to use it? And this is going way beyond business. Even I mean, this is just personal. And I think that you get lost in. You mentioned like almost personas and copycats. Is like you get lost, and I think companies lose sight of that too. And I understand there's a certain level of professionalism, right? That you got to stay on brand and you got to blah 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 blah, put the suit and tie on. But at the end of the day, like there's still human element there. There's still connection there that if more companies and more organizations had that human element, I think they would probably eliminate a lot of their HR issues. They'd probably eliminate a lot of their hiring issues. They probably would see a lot of things change in their businesses if they would allow there to be a level of human element. Just simply be real people.
Yeah.
That's it. At the end of the day, from the CEO to the janitor, like we're all real people, and there's at some level we all connect one way or another. So that's it's incredible. That's really good. What I guess looking forward is, as your business started taking off and as you're booking more gigs, and then whether you were talking and then kind of selling, or both, a little bit of both, what progressed in your business? I mean, what challenges change, right? Like they change from startup and kind of getting ramped up. Now we can have bigger challenges or larger problems. So some people call them high level problems or good problems to have, but there's still roadblocks and there's still obstacles that we have to navigate. So how did that change for you from like beginning to finding gigs? And some of them were good, some of them were bad. And I understand that can still happen even as you get a certain level. I mean, but what challenges, how did they change as your business started to grow?
I think the biggest challenge in my business is me. And
It's good.
what do I mean by that? Is that, you know, if if you apply yourself to marketing, it works. If you apply yourself to selling, it works. And I think that the thing that has hurt me in my business is imposter syndrome, and just believing, like truly believing every single time that I've wanted to up level, that I'm not good enough, that, you know, I don't know what I'm doing, like it's too hard. Like I really just get into my own head about
Sure.
it. Because every single time that I've gotten out of my head and I'm like, okay, I'm going to go find 10 new clients, and I go to chambers of commerce meetings and I go to Toastmasters and I go to TEDx events and I talk to people and I get online, I start asking my current clients for referrals and things like that, the business comes in.
Right.
And so, I think that it's really natural for all of us to look on the outside externally and say, the problem is that, the economy is bad. The problem is that, there aren't enough this or not enough that or whatever. And for me, because I knew you were going to ask me that question, and someone else on the podcast day before yesterday asked me the same thing. And, I used to answer the question quite differently, but as I've grown in my business, especially reaching, 7 figures, it it really is just always me. I am my biggest problem, and I'm also my best solution.
Yeah. Now, I think that there's, and I don't know if it's human reaction or just the culture or what it is, but I think that we do. We whether it's business or personal relationships, all of it is that we want to look, and it's not always this, but a good portion of the time, it's we want to point at something else. It's probably not me. So let me go find out what it is. And I love, and I've heard this said in numerous different ways. We talked about the economy is like businesses want to blame. And don't get me wrong, I think there's genuine impacts from the economy on certain businesses.
Sure.
But I
Yeah.
think that there's also, it's a blame shift. It's a deflection, is that at the end of the day, the money's still there. It didn't disappear. Like, it's still out there. It's just, we have to, and I did sales training for a long, long time, way too long. I did sales training for a long time. And that's what I had to explain to these high level salesmen. That was, for $100 million companies, it was like, guys, like, the money is still out there. Like, it didn't disappear. They didn't put it in a pile and burn it up. It's your job to go find it. And so you have to stay encouraged in that. But sales is probably get on that tangent for a while. Sales guys in particular, they're the ones that they're like, oh, it's this and it's that. It was cloudy that day. And like, it's just, they'll come up with any excuse in the world. It was a double rainbow, so I couldn't sell anything. Like, they'll come up with any excuse in the world. But in the reality, it was more internal than it was anything. They weren't motivated. They weren't pulling themselves out of the gutters. They weren't getting past the nose. They were getting discouraged by the nose, whatever it may be. But I think that we have to, and again, gold for business owners here is that if you're looking at your business and you're looking at your employees, your staff, everything, you're going, why is our revenue stagnant, or why did it go down? Why are we not growing at the pace we want to grow at? A lot of times you need to sit back. Number one, if you haven't found anything else, and you're like, no, we got great employees, we got a great product, you might want to sit back and look at the top. And you might want to sit back and look internal and go, what am I doing? Am I holding the business back? Am I keeping us stuck in, the last century? Am I the problem? Am I causing the issues here? And if so, I mean, if you're a business that size, you've got the money to hire a consultant anyways. So bring somebody in from the outside with different perspective. When we rebranded to this logo from the one I had created on, I don't even know, Microsoft Paint probably. When we rebranded and went with a new logo, I hired a consultant. I hired a firm, and I was like, look, this is what we do. We're creative. Like, we come up with graphics and we run ads, and like, this is what we do. But I didn't want to have anything to do with it. I had a base idea, and I gave them my rough idea, sent it to them. They came up with like 30 different variations, and then we limited it down to 5, made some refinements. That me and my family with our kids sat down and we picked out the new logo, which was a cool story for us anyways. But it was because I knew I would be in the way. I knew that I would sit there and think about it forever and never land on anything, or say I need to do this and never get it done. I would absolutely be my own worst enemy, because I'm analytic that way. I just know. So I agree 100% that I think that you are not alone in that. I think we all get in our own way. I think we stand and we think maybe way too long. I think thinking is good, and I think having thought and planning is great, but I think we also can reach a barrier to where that is what's holding us back. And once again, that's us. We're debating on it too long. We're thinking about it when we should have just taken some level of action and then worked on it. So yeah, gold, absolute gold. What's next for you? I mean, are you on just in your perfect wheelhouse right now? I mean, obviously we're all trying to continue to grow, and I'm sure you're still trying to book more speaking engagements, things like that. But what do you have on the horizon? I mean, do you have anything else? I mean, you can't do anything more than the triangle, right? I guess you go to an octagon, I mean, but what's next for you in your business? What are you looking forward to?
I'm looking forward to speaking more. I took a break for a long time. I've held my own events and for my own clients, and I've helped them get on stages, but I really feel like 2025 going into, the next 5 years after that, my business isn't going anywhere. I love what I do. I love my clients. And at the same time, I also just want to be reaching a larger audience. So
Sure.
I'm looking forward to, and I love the energy of in person. I love podcasts too. I mean, podcasts are fantastic. It's how a
Yeah.
lot of people meet people that they become friends with and they do business with and they learn. I've learned so many things from podcasts, from staining, how to stain my fence, to
That's
how to
awesome.
build a sales funnel. I've learned just so much by listening to them. But I love the in person, and so that's really kind of my next goal, is to get out in front of more people.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. And again, foresight, like you're seeing that. It never hurts to take, I want to say a step back, but to take a step back and reflect and take the time that you need to know where would you want to, what do I really love about my business? What do I not like about my business? Where do I really want to put my focus on? Do I want to grow this side or that side? So I think that sometimes we have to. And I just got through kind of talking bad about thinking, but sometimes you need that time, like especially as your business hits a certain level. You have to really sit back and think, what are the next 5 years? What is that going to look like? And what do I want it to look like? And then you start to manifest these and put that work in to make those things happen. I got two more questions for you. And one of them is, I don't ask everyone this because it wouldn't make sense, but if you had to pick, and this may be challenging, maybe not, maybe you might know right away. If you had to pick your favorite event that you've spoken at, what was that event and why?
That's a great question. I would probably say that it was a women's event in British Columbia. And the reason for that is because um, only 33% of the voices that are on stages in the world are women. And all of us that were speaking that day, we were speaking to a room of, I think there were 350, 400 women in the room, um, that came from every walk of life, from, you know, abuse to born with the best parents in the whole wide world, um, impoverished to a silver spoon. But when those doors to the event room closed, we were all just one heart, and it was a heart for women to have a platform, to use our voices, to be out into the world. And that's why I'm so grateful, to you, DJ, and to other, males who are leading podcasts and stages, to have, women on as guests, as experts, and as leaders, because it's very much needed right now. So I
Yeah,
thank you. But that
absolutely.
really was an event that sticks with me.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And I didn't know if you would say that event or you would say the event that no one showed up at. That may not be your favorite one, but I think, you learned a lot at the events, but we covered that story and I was like, what if she says, no, that was good though. That was even better. That was a better answer. No, and I am one that, I've been married 18 years this year. Although I was raised in a home where I was raised mostly by my mother, wasn't, and that's still in an ideal situation. But I don't know. I was raised with an aspiration, probably more from my grandmothers than anything, but I was raised with just who they were, and they were good people, and they did everything they could for me. And then seeing my wife now, before she was the mother of my children, which is a very short time, we were married about a year before we had our first kiddo, and but seeing and being surrounded by some awesome women business owners locally as well that I network with and am able to connect with on a regular basis, there's just another level there, in my opinion. I mean, I've heard some great male speakers, but when you hear, I don't know what it is about us guys, but we put up a wall. I try not to because I don't want to. I think that I want to be my true authentic self and I want to express myself that way. And I'm not afraid to cry. I'm not afraid of any of that. But I think a lot of them are. They have to stay in that persona. They have to stay in that tough guy, or they have to stay in the I know everything. Whereas when I see most women speak, whether it be at a small networking group of 50 people or on a stage of 5,000 or 10,000 people, there's just heart there. Like There's passion there. And I know that I have 100% taken from that. I had the pleasure of, and I will again this year, is we have a women's expo that we do locally. And you got me thinking, so we may chat after the podcast, or at least continue to chat. But we get to cover it. So, I'm the only guy in the room typically. And so I get to go usually and capture video and capture photos and things like that. I haven't spoken at it yet, but I don't know that I will. I want to let them be able to have their moment. But I think that if I ever did, I feel like it would be from the angle of like what we said earlier. My angle that if I ever spoke at a women's event, it would be the world needs you. And don't be afraid. Like the guys of the world, we need you. And like, we need what you have because we don't like, and we can learn so much from you and what you have and your story. And we're built different. And then like for us to be able to take some of that, I feel like there's better men in the world because of women. And that's my honest, flat out truth. And my wife, she's not sitting here, or she'd pat me on the back. She wouldn't. But that's just the God's honest truth, is that I feel like I've learned so much from her and seeing how she parents and how she processes things. And yeah, absolutely. No. So I will continue to have women on my podcast, and I appreciate you guys and what you're doing. I want to say thank you, because I think it's needed, not only for the women that you get to speak to, but the guys too. As I just said, I'm one of those that sit in that room and soak up everything that you would say. And that's my piece of advice to any guys, any dudes that are out there listening. Don't not hear this is the best way I could probably. I had better wording in my head, better English in my head, but don't miss this. Don't miss what she's saying, and don't take it at surface level. It's like you need to dive into what has been said here today for sure.
And I also want to say that
please
too,
go.
like, and women need good men.
Sure. Yeah.
We don't just need each other, but we love good men, and we need good men, and you are one of those good men. So thank you.
I'm trying my best. Of course. Absolutely. It's a daily thing, right? Just all of us to be good people in general, and to be good husbands, wives, men and women. It's something that it's effort. It's effort. We all have emotions and everything else, but you got to check those things for sure. This is my last question for you, and it's a question we always end with. Just from you got a lot of life experience and you got a lot of business experience. So if you had to summarize all of that from your life experience, your business experience, and leave a piece of advice for anyone watching, whatever walk of life they're in, entrepreneur, college student, business owner, high-level CEO, what would that single piece of advice that you would leave them with be?
Manage your expectations.
Good.
Because when we over expect, we are disheartened, and we lose our motivation, and we lose our hope, and we lose our way. So, manage your expectations. If you're just starting a business, chances are you may not even really take a paycheck for the first few years. The money that you get in is probably just going to cover your expenses. And if it's more than that, then that's great. But if you have to keep, driving on the weekends, delivering food, or if you have to keep your job at Home Depot, or you have to keep your corporate job while you're building your side gig, it does not mean anything. It doesn't mean one thing. So, that is just the biggest piece of advice that I would give you. My expectations in the beginning of my career were too high, and it cost me a lot. It cost me a lot of sleepless nights. It cost me a lot of chasing my tail in 360 degrees. It really, and it made me angry, and it made me bitter, and it made me compare myself to other people. Why do they have this, and why does that person have that? And what I started to learn was that they had 15 years of silent sweating before they became, fill in the blank, right? And so it's very similar to my life. If you follow me right now, you might be like, wow, how did she get? No, it's been a long, hard haul of
Yeah.
losing clients, gaining clients, firing clients, being disappointed because I wasn't hired by someone that I thought was absolutely, definitely going to hire me, and all the things. So
Yep.
that's it. Manage the
No,
expectation.
that's phenomenal. We have something we say, and I actually learned it from a guy at a speaking engagement, and he's ex-military, and so he relates it. And so every time I tell people this story, I'm like, take it into context. He's ex-military, so just know where it's coming from. But he talked about, look, there's nothing wrong with having big audacious goals, right? Like you've got this, oh my gosh, this is what we want to do. But he was one that he wanted to shift everyone's mindset, and he said, look, I don't look at goals. He said, I'm not a goal-oriented person, because if you ever watch soccer, goals happen so infrequently that everyone loses their mind, and it's like they've never been there before, like they've never scored a goal before. He's like, and it's so rare to actually score a goal and to make a goal. He goes, that I prefer to look at it from my military background as targets, is that I have targets along the way that as I come up on them, we execute on those, we take care of that target, we move on to the next target. And he was like, I think that if more people would approach it that way, we're like, it's fine to have this big number on the wall or number of clients or things like that. But if you have something micro underneath it, that you're able to go after that micro piece and go and celebrate every single win along the ways of going, my huge goal is, 500 clients, then that's great, but have a goal of 5. Or a target of 5, have another target at the next step of 10, and then 15. That way you don't have that, well, I missed the goal, but you're able to celebrate the targets along the way. And I think it keeps it in perspective, and it gives us it's a better track also, is that we're able to go after, like if you're focusing on this big, huge goal, you could miss it completely and not even come close. And like you said, get discouraged, get angry, fall completely off the path. Whereas if you have micro targets along the way that you're able to knock down and celebrate those and be excited that you get to the end of a quarter or a year and go, wow, look how many targets we knocked down throughout the year. You feel encouraged to, continue moving forward. So perfect. I completely agree with you. I think and we try to, you're speaking to the choir here, because that's something we've adopted as well. Because I think all of us, as entrepreneurs, business owners, business leaders, we have huge goals and visions and all those things, but it again is about keeping it perspective, because a lot of your entrepreneur and type A personalities, we also can have the moment of like squirrel, where we're like, whoa, wait, what about that shiny object over there, or the other leg of business, or this or that, and then I got goals over here too, and all the while the main, I don't call it cash cow, it's probably the wrong expression there, but it is, at the end of the day, like your core business starts to suffer because and that's what I have the perfect team member in my wife, because she'll knock me across the head and go, focus. And she'll remind me what pays the bills and keeps everybody paid. But it's good. It's really, really good. No, Allyson, this has been a phenomenal episode, and I honestly can't wait to get it up. If people want to connect with you, is there one place? Is there multiple places? Can you let folks know? And I want to make sure we'll mention that in the captions and everything when we put this out. But how can people find you if they want to follow you?
The best way to follow me is just to go to my website. It's www.allysonroberts.com. It's my name. If you're listening and you're not watching, it's ALLYSON. You can thank my dad for that. That is really the best way, because all my links are there. Everything's
Perfect.
there.
Awesome. Now we'll make sure we'll include that in the captions as well. Thank you so much for joining. I'm glad we were able to get it done. And I'm glad we were able to reschedule and get it back on here. I want to stay in touch for multiple reasons. And I think that having you back on from time to time would be awesome for our audience. So I want to stay in touch there too. But again, I just want to say thank you. Thanks for being on. And thanks for bringing value to our audience.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Guys, if you are listening on audio, we'd love for some feedback there. Let us know what you liked, what you didn't like. It helps us reach more and more entrepreneurs. If you took something from this, if you're watching on YouTube, hey, thank you. We appreciate you being there. Give us a like, subscription over there. If you're listening or watching anywhere else, TikTok or anywhere else in the universe where these clips go, we appreciate you, and we thank you for being here as well. And we will see you guys on the next episode. Thanks for watching.
Thank you for tuning in. If you're watching on YouTube, hit that subscribe button. If you're on audio, we'd love your follow. If you'd like to be a guest, head up www.speakloudmedia.com/GGG podcast and fill out our guest form. Thanks again for tuning in.